listen. Good morning and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host on how to fight CPS and keep your children. What is CPS? CPS is the child protection system, what I call it. It's different to a lot of states because some of them, like Arizona, call the Department of Children's Services. And then in Kentucky, they call it the cabinet of, uh, they just call it the cabinet. But anyway, um, and then in California, it's called the uh, Child Protection Services. And so when I refer to CPS, I mean all of the agencies that are a branch of social services in counties in every state that protects the children from neglect and abuse, and also supposed to provide family with assistance in housing and clothing and food and other welfare needs, like medical and educational. It's supposed if a family is hurting, they're supposed to step in, but instead they break families apart. And it's really horrid because what is the end result? Every day we hear about thousands. Well, not, I shouldn't say thousands, but we hear about children dying, innocent children that are one, two, whatever the age are, that never get a chance to complete their circle of life. They're brought in this world and they deserve an opportunity. So I always want to go ahead, Faye. I got Faye on the line here from Kentucky. Go ahead, Faye. Oh, okay. I have an early caller already. She's Faye from Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky, and she's a single mom, and she has a child, a special needs child that she has to take care of. But her daughter was taken from her, not by choice. She was forced to decide between a child that had special needs and a child that was young. And it's the most horrible thing for a mother to do is to give up a child. And it seems like Kentucky is ranking one of the number one states in the country of a failed child protection system, from the governor all the way down to the social worker. There's so many mistakes made in Kentucky, including the local police, who do nothing more than support the child protection system and the bureau and the cabinet. Now we have somebody just came in the room. It says, I, Martinez. What happens when you please say no contest in Los Angeles? Well, the word no contest, from legal perspective, you have three choices: guilty, not guilty, or no contest. That means you're still guilty, but you're not going to pursue it. It's usually a quick remedy for a criminal action. I don't think there's no contest in the CPS dependency court. I think all it does is CPS automatically thinks you're guilty with the allegations. They don't say you're innocent to you're proven guilty. They say you're guilty to you're proven innocent. And so I'm telling you, there's no contest that I've heard of in child dependency cases, Martinez. But I don't know where you're from, Martinez. Could you tell me the city, the state, or the country you're from? Now, I like to get into how they act with the podcast. I'm going to try to go quick. There are four ways. The first way is that you're already in this room and you're participating by listening and taking notes. The second way is to type a comment about your CPS concerns or questions. Please show me your name. And the name I'm talking about is a name that is like a common name, like Peggy, Mary, Sue, or some Jackrabbit or Flies with Eagles. It's a nice name for you for your other purposes, but like a real name, first name only. A city, a state, or country. There's been 13 countries that have called in, from Australia to Bangladesh, from Africa to India to the United States to Europe. And I've had about 13 of the comments texts in. The other day was a boy of 18 from Amas, India, which is northeastern India. And then you want to be complete with your CPS case. It gives me, if you can tell me what your family structure is, what the allegations are, the ages of the children, and where you're at on your case would really help. And now, the third way to interact with this podcast, I had two guests last night, Summer and Christian. You can be a guest on the show. All you have to do is contact our show producer, Grace, who is at grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's her email, grace at vincentdavis.com. I put that up on the screen. And she will help you get on the podcast. I have 14 shows. I'm on 7 days a week, twice a day. 10 o'clock in the morning, Pacific Standard Time, 7 o'clock at night, Pacific Standard Time. The only exceptions are occasionally they're different times. Like on Sundays, I'm always on at 8 o'clock because I go to church with my family. And then on next Friday night, on the 6th of September, is Friday Night Football, and there to support my son in football and so forth. So I'll be going at next Friday the 6th at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. So turn in your email. She will get a hold of you. I broadcast on YouTube. I use the StreamYard application, and she will give you the link. And then she'll tell you what to do and not to do on the podcast, such as no names of children, social workers, judges. Also, she'll say no smoking or eating on the show. All right. The last way, and is my phone number. I put it up now, and you can call me at that phone number. It's 626-698-0990. And I'll gladly answer your questions, and I'll put you on speakerphone. So we've had one person make a comment, Martinez. I don't know where you're from, but I think you're from Los Angeles, California. Because you mentioned no contest in Los Angeles. And I assume you're talking about a CPS case and not a criminal case, because no contest is something that you plead in a criminal matter or a traffic matter in there. So if that helps you out, Martinez, um, hopefully that answers your question. Okay, you're probably wondering what kind of a guy I am. I'm a loving father of 6 children. I believe in the family so hard. For better or worse, I have stuck it out with my family. I've gone through really a lot of heartaches, ones that my parents never went through. They got to enjoy their golden years. At age 60, I lost my career job. I've been working for over, 50 years. And I started working when I was 15. I've worked since then steadily. And I'm talking working hard, like 60 hours a week. And so I worked hard and I was rewarded with good paying jobs, beautiful homes, travel around the world. I've traveled to some countries 25, 26 times. And I have a really broad spectrum of life. But unfortunately, at the age of 60, when I lost my job through no fault of my own, I started getting contacted and harassed by the child protection system. In California, they're notorious. And all they do is they respond to allegations, which I did not know at the time that the lay people, my family in laws, my wife's mother, father, brother, and 3 sisters, were saying stupid things like the family doesn't bathe, or the family has no electricity, the family has no gas, the family does not have water, they have no food for the kids don't go to school. And once a week, I'd meet with them. Most of the times, it's outside at their car in the evening light, and I'd show them my bills I pay. I show them the grade reports of the kids achieving in school, and they've been in my home, and they saw nothing wrong. I had an eating preparation. My home was great, and unfortunately, in 2015, that's when everything fell apart. And then, sadly, um, my mom and dad were dying, or my dad had previously died, and I had the belongings of my parents. They've been married for 55 years. They had a huge home, 4,000 square foot, and I put that in my 3,000 square foot home. So I had a lot of belongings, but they're all very nicely organized in the living room. The living room was the only room that was impacted by this. But what happened was, after 5 years, the Child Protection Service in California contacted the local police and asked for their assistance to get into the home. I did not know that there's only 3 ways to get into a home. You either get into a home by getting permission to the people who let you in the home, or there's domestic violence going on. That's where you're arguing with your spouse or arguing with somebody, and you may have a knife or a gun. And anyway, or you may be hurting your child by strangling your child or throwing them against the wall. They're going to come in. Social workers and police will enter the home. The third is a court warrant. They got to have a court warrant to enter your home. They have to have a court warrant to take your child. Just because they say they want your child. The other day, I read about, I didn't read about it, I had a lady tell me yesterday that she was handcuffed by the child protection system. Not the police, but the system. They handcuffed her and took their child to their office overnight that could have been maybe put with a family or friends. But it was a terrible. I have never heard of handcuffing or arresting in CPS's hands as done by the police. But apparently they did that, and that was horrific. That was horrific. So I went through where they were able to charge something called neglect, and their idea of neglect was because I had my family's belongings and they were stacked like 3 boxes high, or I had furniture stacked, chair on top of a chair. They said that could hurt your children. My children at the time were 9, 12, and 15. And they had their own bedrooms. They had their own bathrooms. They had their own play areas. They had a nice, beautiful yard to play out. They had a swimming pool to swim in. They had, they had a jacuzzi outdoor, a grotto. They had the waterfalls. They had the English yard, the tropical yard. And they had 2 Siberian huskies to play with. And they were doing well in school. They were enrolled in STEM program where they took a science class, a technology class, an engineering class, and a math class. They were bound to be some some great engineering or some great science um, job. And so they were in school, and they were taken out of school because they felt they're in imminent danger. Since when being in school is imminent danger? And then people said, well, because you got charged with neglect, they're in danger. How are they in danger? The boxes, the furniture weren't upstairs in their bedroom. They weren't contingent. There was no extreme danger. It's a cop out. It's something that you as parents, and if you're listening to this, have to recognize that there are rights, constitutional civil rights, and they're going to walk all over you. They're not transparent. They're evil. It's like you're Alice in Wonderland. You've fallen in the rabbit hole. You met the Chester cat, who makes no sense. And you go to rooms where off with your head. They are terrible. And that leads me to a very important rule. You need to get an attorney. And that's my rule number one. And I have an attorney that produces this podcast. His name is Vincent W. Davis, and his law firm is Vincent W. Davis Associates. He has all kinds of lawyers that deal with criminal matters, and will deal with tax matters. Will deal with um, uh, mortgage home matters. They deal with uh, your work wages, et cetera, divorce. But he specializes in dependency law, which is juvenile and family dependency law. Those are the key buzzwords: juvenile, family, dependency law. You want to make sure those three are in there. A lot of people just say family. A lot of people say dependency or juvenile. They go hand in hand. And you need an attorney that has fought the child protection system. And Vincent Davis is that attorney. He has been doing this for 35 years. He has won cases and got the children returned. He knows how to fight CPS in one of the worst places in Orange County, California, in LA County, California. There are really bad cases there. Why? There's a big population. One of the reasons why. But you also have bad cases in Kentucky, severely bad cases. And people, young innocent children, are being killed. It hurts me so much to read stories after stories. And there's all these children that have been innocently taken from completing their circle of life. You know, everybody's entitled to it. I don't know if you watch The Lion King, but there's a strong message that we all are on this road called the circle of life. We start out as an infant, and we end up, as sad as it say, as an infant because we have to be cared for in our later life. And it's really sad. But while we're on this earth and planet, We need to start treating each other with love and harmony and caring. We need to be caring people, people that care about one another, people that aren't only into themselves or only into money. Money is nice. I've experienced it. I've been very wealthy. I've been very poor. I've lived in a car for 4 or 5 months. I've been in the hospital, um, and I have experienced everything. I've experienced everything, and I've stuck together with my family. My wife and I've been married for 31 years. I have 6 children that I associate with. 4 of them are biological. The other 2 I adopted in my heart, meaning they're my wife's 2 children. But unfortunately, the first one was rape, and that's a horrible thing for a woman to go through. But she did not give up the child or terminate the child. She gave up the child for adoption because she was 16 at the time and she was trying to finish high school. She regrets that she gave up her son, but they talked her into it, and her family was really bad about that. Her family is where the child protection agency should have investigated. There was all kinds of things that my wife went through growing up. She had scalding hot water put on her as a form of punishment in the bathtub. She had hot coffee thrown on her. Her brother molested her, when she was quite young, and the parents did nothing about that. She even complained to her parents about that. They've always called her the black sheep of the family because she had a child. What happened was, at age 16, she goes to a concert. Everybody wants to go to a concert when you're a teenager. I refused to do that. My daughter, when she got 16, wanted to go to concerts. I had to go to concerts with her. When she was starting to show an interest with guys, and in my surfing trips where I would travel around the world, I was there no far from her, watching her dance with the guys, but making sure that she was protected. I made sure she did not experience what my wife did. So she was raped, and we had the child come back into our lives when she was age of 20. And being age 20, he found his mom, and they had a nice relationship until CPS came along later in life when he was in his 40s. And that happened to my adopted daughter, who she had from a relationship. Again, she was abused by a guy that got her pregnant. And this time she didn't give up her child. And her parents sent her off to a home in another city, which was shame. They were embarrassed. There were parents that were embarrassed. And I had to say it, my mom and dad did an awful thing to my sister, who passed away unfortunately too early in life. And she had a bedwetting problem. And they used to, in those days, hang out the bed sheets out of the window to embarrass her, but I don't know what kind of embarrassment it was. That was wrong. And she had a habit of tearing pieces of paper. My parents were loving parents, I will say that, but they're from the old school. And their discipline was really harsh. It was the belt all the time. My mom and dad had a lot of domestic violence that should have been adhered to. And my dad, who I'm very proud to say was an admiral in the United States Navy and took care of my mom and us, and I moved out at 18. But both my parents were smokers and alcoholics. They quit the smoking in their 50s so they could live to their 80s. They got another 30 years on life. I'm not saying that smoking, but smoking is harmful. It's not good for you. Especially if you're pregnant, you shouldn't smoke because you're just going to put the smoke in the child. You're going to put that nicotine in the child's system. Same thing with drugs. I'm not here to say that drugs are bad or good or whatever, but it seems like one drug leads to another drug, to a higher drug, to a higher drug, and you spin out of control. Their habit, their habiting forming, and that's how it starts with marijuana. People say, well, it's legal. Everybody drinks is like alcohol. Well, alcohol excessively is bad too. In fact, I don't smoke. I don't have alcohol. Occasionally, I have a drink every once a year or something like that. But I used to drink, but I don't. So anyway, I had a bringing up of a very disciplined father, and he was loving, and so was my mother, and I'm proud of them. But they have exhibit issues that CPS should have intervened, especially with the domestic violence, the argument and stuff. I'm not proud to say too, because I did have arguments too. I had strong arguments too, so I know. what it is about domestic violence. But I am a caring man, and I care about every one of you out there. I know there are listeners in this room. I don't see you, but you see me. But I care, and I know you're going through a lot of pain and suffering out there. A lot of, you're a single mom because the man ran off. He was thinking with his wrong head. He didn't care about children. There's so many men that don't care about children, which is sad. Every child needs a mother and father. Studies have shown the best parents are mothers and fathers. Best parents are mothers and fathers. Again, my phone is live. It's 626-698-0990. I've been telling you about my life and my life with the CPS. They're not to be trusted. If you want to know about a social worker, I had a horrible one. She was in her early 20s, and she knew nothing about social work or about CPS or unification. She knew nothing about how to care of parenting classes or program classes. They were terrible in my case. They escalated every time I would write them an email or went against what they're doing. Like they want you to sign a safety plan, don't sign it. They want you to do all this other stuff. They make promises. If you keep your promise, they'll give your child back. That's not true. They changed it. There's a mother on the show that has two sets of twins, and they made a promise that she'd get her young twins back and she'd give up her older twins. Well, that didn't materialize because somehow the social workers up her up end up saying so. Now she's lost four girls or four children. I don't know if they're both girls. I mean, I know one set was. But anyway, I have a lot of people on the show. I've talked to over 500 people, and believe me, it's been really tough because I relived my child protection, what I went through. But this social worker of mine was so bad that I hired an attorney finally. I hired an attorney called Mr. Davis. We were talking about her, my rule number one. And he was defending me because three of my six children were stolen. They weren't just asked nicely; they were stolen. They were trafficking into foster care. The first couple of days they spent at the shelter. The shelter was a foster care shelter run by supposedly adults that had backgrounds in how to work with kids and how to take care of kids. The shelter was horrifically terrible. It's right next to the courts in Orange County, and it's next door, right with adjacent to the juvenile prison there. And of course, down from the juvenile prisons was the dog shelter. Really great environment. There's nothing wrong with a shelter for dogs, but it's the prison. The juvenile prisoners were able to go to the fence and talk to my kids in the play area, what they have out there. But the play area wasn't even safe. They had a beehives that would sting the children. So how are they protecting my children? They take them from a school, and luckily I was able to convince them for them to stay at my wife's sister and husband. So all three of them were there, and they thought it was only going to be a month-long process. Well, I got news for you. CPS is years, years and years and more years. And so, anyway, they were at this shelter. The food was terrible. They were stacked on top of each other. They didn't have sleeping accommodations. It was overcrowded. There were roaches. My kids experienced something they never experienced before, roaches. And that is the hands of CPS. Roaches. Bees will sting you. Prisoners, they'll sit there and entice you. That is a safe environment. And their idea of schooling, by the way, for the first couple of days was read a book to them. They weren't taken to the school of origin. I mean, it involved too much work for the social workers. All they want to do, and by the way, if you haven't guessed it, the number one thing they do is because of money. It's $1 trillion business. Trillions. It's $60,000 per child per month in Orange County they take for a child. And it's really terrible because if you look at a family of 100 families, and each of them have three children, that's $6 million a month. $6 million in 1 month. So it's $1 trillion business all across the United States. And I don't care if you're from the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, are you from Maine or Pennsylvania? It's the same story. It's the same story. The Lakota Sioux children. were terribly, terribly taken from parents. They passed a law, the ICWA law, the Indian Child Welfare Act, and that is for the United States. That was passed in '78 for the purpose of having the Indian children that could be registered or are registered, and there's 548 tribes, federal recognized tribes in the United States, be placed with the Indian tribes so they can be put with the Indian families so they can be raised and be taken care of. So they can be raised and taken care of. And I don't want to forget my friends up north in Canada because they have a similar agency. It's actually an agency, not an act. But it was passed in 1980, and it's called the Indian Nations. They call their people the First uh, Nation, the First Nation people. And in the United States, it's called the Native American Indians. So the First Nation people of Canada are protected also. And I learned that the other day because we had a person from British Columbia. As I say, I've had people from all kinds of places. A country called Rwanda, that if you don't know, in 1994, 1 million people were wiped out. They were slaughtered and killed and murdered of civil rights. And over a half a million females were raped. Raped. I'm talking about young ones and old ones and whatever. That's why I say, it's females. It's terrible. Terrible. I mean, that country didn't have that many people. Rwanda is small. It's near Lake Victoria. But I've heard of horrific stories. And it's sad because I talk to Faye all the time. We talk on and off ever since we made friends. And it's like the other day she was talking about she couldn't understand, and I don't understand, how Kentucky can allow two innocent children to be brutally killed. A mother had a child, um, Serenity, in, in, in Kentucky, and she had it with her boyfriend, but somehow they separated, and he's down in Florida. And so she met her new boyfriend. His new boyfriend had domestic violence background. He loved to strangle animals, kill animals. So he took this girl, this little girl. She was only 3 years old at the time, going to be her fourth birthday coming up. And he swung her around and threw her on the floor, and then punched her in the stomach so bad, it swelled up like she was pregnant. And of course, she died, and then they hid it. That mother, and her boyfriend went to a place where they smoked pot all the time, and put her stuffed in a suitcase and threw cat litter on the child. Is that any deserving respect that a little girl who's brought in this world, who hasn't had a chance to do anything with her circle life, is killed? And then on top of that, who's at fault? Yes, the parents are the number one culprits. But you know who else is? CPS, the Child Protection, the cabinet. The cabinet did nothing, and there's recorded things of it. In fact, there are auditors and ombudspersons that talk about it like it's no big deal. A life is very important, and all of you are trying to fight with a very corrupt system. I really feel for you. So I strongly urge you, you need to get an attorney because your court appointed attorney, I'm not saying don't use him, but he has a caseload of 30 more clients. He will not fight for you. He's not paid enough. He's in cahoots with the court appointed attorney for the children, with the social workers, attorneys, with the judge. They golf together, they eat lunch together. He has no control. He's not going to fight for you. So you need to get that attorney. And I strongly urge you to call in 888-888-6582. That's the office. And tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And when you talk to Mr. Davis, tell them that Bob Pace sent you. And I've made a deal with him that he'll talk to you for 30 minutes for $60. 30 minutes for $60. That's why I tell you to call in. And if they don't get back to you, call in again and again, or come on my show, give me the dates you called, and I will give that personally to Mr. Davis. I do talk to him from time to time. And a night ago, I was on his podcast. He wanted to hear how my experience were coming on my podcast. So he does a podcast. I do a podcast probably more than anybody that I know of. I don't know of anybody in the CPS fighting arena out there that does 14 shows a week. That is a lot of shows. And it's a lot for me to get up because I truly am struggling in life. and I'm trying to make my life better and trying to take care of my family. Ever since I got involved, I had to sell my home. I lost my home because I had to hire Vincent Davis. And this social worker I was telling you about, she was on the stand and they were talking about uh, my wife's sister and husband adopting our daughter. They couldn't handle three kids, but they thought maybe they could adopt. And they wanted to take her. Why? Our children are beautiful. They're well mannered. They're not disrespectful, but they're spoiled. I spoiled them too much. I gave them everything that my parents couldn't give me. We had Disneyland passes. We had a $2 million home close to the beach. You know, we went on trips to Portugal, to Brazil, to Recife, to the Portuguesas. I mean, I'm a world traveler. It's all related to surfing. You know, surfing's been my life. People ask who you're married to. I'm married to the ocean. That's my first marriage. I'm married to the ocean. And I live and breathe the salt air. 4 o'clock is my ritual. I'm down there at the beach checking out the dawn patrol, checking out the surf. And I try to still go to surfing contests. I still watch it, still involved. But with Mr. Davis, when you talk to him, he'll give you a consultation. He won't tell you you have to hire him. I know a lot of you say, I can't afford a retainer. It's 20, 30, $50,000. I know. I want to sue the social worker because she perjured herself on the case. It came up, and what was happening is that Mr. Davis had done some investigation on this couple, and he had a folder that was an inch thick. And in the folder, there was more than 30 police reports of domestic violence. So he asked her, you know, has this couple ever had? Well, at first he asked her what this couple was like, and the social worker went on, "Oh, they're great. They'll take good care of your child." Like we are bad parents. Like we didn't take care of our child who was in the STEM education, who was involved in Girl Scouts, involved in AYSO soccer, who traveled with us, who had vacations, who had Disneyland 7 days a week if she wanted to, who got everything underneath the sun from, you know, TVs to audios to, I mean, it was ridiculous. Every child had a high definition TV screen in their room and a player to go with it and radios, electronics. I mean, my kids were never ever denied anything. All the wealth that I made was spent on my family, all of it, and I amassed a lot of it, and I used it all. There's over $1 million I spent with my attorney, and I know that's a lot of money, and I want to fight for what she did. But this social worker was then asked by my attorney, Mr. Davis, has there been any domestic violence? And you know what she said? She very probably said, "Oh no, they're a beautiful couple. There's no such thing I've come across." Well, then Vincent started reading report after report after report, and the social worker's face drew bright red, very embarrassed in front of her peers, and left the court. And you know what she said to us as parents? "You'll never see your daughter again." And you know what she did? She convinced our daughter to emancipate from us. That means divorce us. She was 12. In California, you can emancipate from your parents at age 12, which I think is stupid and wrong. Kids should not emancipate from their parents. If the parents are that awful, then the parents should be helped out and learn to be good parents again, or keep the child with some other family member. You know, not foster care. Family member is a good choice. There are a lot of family members that would take on your child, but that's always too much work for social workers. Social workers, all they want is the dollar. They don't want to help. Now, that doesn't mean all social workers are bad, but I would say probably 99% of them are. Um, I met maybe very few. I've had social workers on my show. I don't know if they were not telling the truth or making up stories. I don't know. I don't know. But I've had three social workers on here. One was a social worker out of Maryland who had a clinical psychology degree and supposedly had 6 months of additional CPS training in Maryland. The other one's from Indiana, a third party social worker that was hired by CPS to help with them. And then the third one recently was a foster care mom who said that she did not do adoption. She was already interested in helping kids that do. And there are bad parents, don't get me wrong. I just gave the example of one, Serenity in Newport. I mean, excuse me, in Kentucky. And that little girl is gone. I mean, seeing her father who had gone to another state to get a better job, to better himself, to work so hard, lost his daughter, lost his daughter. I mean, people in relationships, I know what the problem is. We don't do life skills in high school anymore. We mandate our children to go to high school, but I think they should also mandate 4 years of life skills. 4 years where they learn how to raise a child, how to do marriages, how to date, how to do your checkbook, simple things, how to fight CPS, how to do your taxes, things you're going to know when you go to adult because not everybody goes to college. Not everybody goes to college. College is a beautiful thing. It's not for the academics. It's for that social experience with other students. I took the 10 years going to college and I learned a lot in 10 years. I learned a lot in 10 years, things I would never experience. I got to play football, got to play rugby. I mean, I got to join a fraternity, and on top of that, I also became a marine animal trainer while I was there. And I was training killer whales and walruses and pilot whales, of course, dolphins, penguins, and even cockatiels, parrots, things like that. All that I got to experience in college. I got to teach at the college. I taught water safety and first aid. I also taught a class in marine cetaceans because I'm a marine biologist for profession. For a living, I'm a civil engineer. That's where the money's at. Civil engineering, construction. It isn't as a marine biologist, but marine biology is my forte. It's what I love. I love working with marine animals, and I love working with marine biology. But sadly say I can't go back to it right now. I have to get back into civil engineering construction because that's where the jobs are at. That's where the money is. But then they're not going to hire a dinosaur. Look at me. I don't feel old. I don't look old, do I? I don't know. I question myself. I'm still physically fit, um, but it's been a rocky road for me. But hiring Mr. Davis will somehow make your life better. But this social worker who, had us be divorced, had her brother, her grandparents, her aunts and cousins, and her name changed, and then her birth certificate sealed, and then adopted into foster care. And that's who ended up on the birth certificate. The new birth certificate has her foster care. Well, she's 22 now, and I think about age 19 or 20, she got disgusted with her foster care parents because of abuse, and she left them. Now she's living at age 22 with our oldest daughter, which is great. She has two children herself, and she started a family. She never said she had a family, but she has a family, and hopes she's getting love to her kids. And she's taken um, our daughter, uh, who is her step. Well, I don't know how you call it. They're biologically related, but anyway, that's where our 22 is. But she still doesn't talk to. She talks to her brothers because we encourage that, and she has no remorse. But she doesn't understand. She's very naive. She's always been a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Anyway, if you heard the sounds, I'm broadcasting from Surf City, USA. I'm up the street from the ocean. I'm outdoors, and people around here talking and walking and carrying on with life. But I know how important the your child is, and your loss of your child and your family. And I'm here for answers to your questions, to your concerns. And sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's a lot of people. And like last night, it was like with two people, my guest. There was three of us talking, plus I had to take down the phone number, and anyway, I really do want to help you families. You need to be very careful, CPS. You need to be very, very, very careful. I have other rules that I made, such as like a notebook. You need to get an 8.5 by 11-inch notebook, 3 inches thick, a 30 ring binder, and you need to hole punch all your court documents. And you need to stuff it full of college rule notebook paper so you can write in it. It's so easier to write in a notebook than it is to write on your phone or to write on your computer or use something like a day runner. I used to do a day runner. I used to do a phone. I still do the phone for my tasks, but it's so hard because you can only write so much. But with a regular notebook, you can let your hands flow. I think with us getting so reliant on electronic technology, recording speeches and stuff, it's still best to write and take notes the old-fashioned way. but you should have a notebook. You need it with dividers, and one of the most important part of that notebook should be your incidents. You will have incidents with your CPS workers. You have incidents with your police. You have incidents with your children. You have incidents with your family and friends. Anytime you have an incident regarding your CPS case, you need to write it down. You need to write down the date, the time, the location, the people you talked to. Your second line should be what the incident was about. It just be a one sentence. That's all it is. And your next line should be what became the outcome of the incident. And you may not know for a couple years, but you eventually will fill it out. And also, you need to look at um, that reference it from time to time because your case is going to last at least 3 years. You have to last longer, and it's not going to have good results because why? They lie, they cheat. Right now in Kentucky, there's over $1 million unaccounted for. They're doing an audit of the CPS system there in Kentucky. In fact, a person has already been charged with embezzlement of money. I mean, this is wrong. There are bad social workers everywhere. There are bad social workers everywhere. In Prescott, Arizona, the year 2022, do you think my social worker wasn't bad? Well, these 8 social workers all went out and wore pink T-shirts with stenciled on them was the words professional child kidnappers. And on the back, they put, do you know where your kids are at? Do you know where your kids are at? And so it is a hard thing. It is really a hard thing. These uh, these social workers. I mean, they went out there to Target, to Best Buys, to Walmart, to Costco, to Sam's, all the big areas. And the parents were a horde. They called in. Those 8 social workers were fired along with the director. But that didn't resolve the issue because I left that service with one person. One person was left to run that service. Think about how many kids were unprotected in Prescott, Arizona, in the year 2022. It's totally wrong of what they did. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. So that's another example of your government paid employees. They're not there to serve the people. They're not. In fact, I don't know what's going to happen. I know one thing: we need to make sure this year of election that we vote for bona fide judges to go in dependency courts. We have to look at that. Um, there's all these judges that come up for reelection, and you as a person voting should vote for somebody that has a background in dependency law, not somebody that knows about car claims or other claims. That's what my judge was known for. He knew nothing about unification. Family reunification is we got to put her family back at no cost. We got to put her family back at no cost. And we need to really, we need to help out parents. I mean, anybody that's come to this room has cared about their children. If somebody doesn't care about their children, they're not going to go to great extremities to get them back or try to help out or try to do things. I mean, you need to do what they ask you. If it is true in certain things, then do those programs. If domestic violence did happen, then do it. If you're an alcoholic and you're out of control, then go through the alcohol program. Same thing with drugs. Go through the drug program. There's anger management programs. All those programs are fine. Yes, they do cost money and stuff. They're going to try to, but keep in mind, if you're low income, they're not supposed to charge you. They're not supposed to charge you court costs or all the things there. I was low income. I qualified for low income. I didn't pay for that thing, but certainly had to go through a lot of hell. Had to go through a lot of hell with these people. And I do this twice a day, and I think about my CPS case all the time, what I did wrong, and what happened and stuff. And so it really is. It really is hard. It really is hard. Um, I do wish I could do a magic wand, but I want to send out warm hugs to all of you. Again, I have about 15 minutes left in my podcast. Does anybody want to call in at 626 698 0990? Now, another rule I have about CPS is the rule of not to answer the front door. Now, you probably say, well, why not answer the front door? Well, recently, I know of three cases where people were murdered by answering the front door. One was a Air Force veteran, a black Air Force veteran, and he was 23. And on May 3rd, he answered the door and he was shot 5 times in the chest. And it took that agency, the Gainesville Police Department, a week before they finally arrested that sheriff. They relieved him of duty, or he actually was fired, but now they're prosecuting him. Why? What he did wrong was a mistaken identity. There was no domestic happening in his apartment. The guy was talking to his girl on FaceTime. Think about the horrific thing she has to live with the rest of her life about a guy she loved was dying on the phone. I mean, that's the first example. Another example was a woman who was washing dishes. It was evening time, and I guess there was some type, I still don't know all the details, but she was shot in the face 5 times by an overzealous sheriff. I mean, the zealous thought he was the really bad person of the world. And he shot her while the assistant deputies, said a comment, well, should I get the first aid kit? And he says, no, she's dead as a doornail. What did the assistant deputy do? Nothing. He didn't do anything to help Sarah. That was wrong that was happening. Police people protect their own, which is wrong. If something's wrong, you need to speak up. I don't care where you work at. So you need to speak up. So, with that being said, that woman's gone. That man's gone. And then we have a Korean lady, an Asian lady that had mental problems. She was shot, dead as a doornail. Again, why can't police learn how to shoot somebody who just injures them? Like shooting in the foot or the arm. Why is it always dead shot in the face or the head, the vital parts of your body? All policemen seem to learn in police school is how to kill somebody. They don't learn the technique of how to apprehend somebody, to de escalate the violence. I mean, the sheriff did so many mistakes in that first black guy that was killed. It was terrible. He knocked on the door, said nothing. He knocked on the door a second time, said nothing. And then when he finally said something, he said in a gruff voice, I'm the sheriff, open up. You just say very nicely. An easy way to do it is, hi, I'm Sheriff such and such of the Gainesville Police Department. And we've had a report of domestic violence. Are you alone? I mean, that would have de-escalated. The guy could have said, well, I'm alone. And no, there's no domestic violence. I'm talking to my girlfriend. And then, another thing too, the policeman could have told the guy, and of course the policeman staying in the wrong spot. He's in front of the door. He could be blasted away if the guy had a gun. And that guy did have a gun. He finally came to the door with a gun, but it was pointed to the ground. He didn't have it pointing at the officer. So uh, all those things are surfacing and stuff. Um, so don't answer the door. If that doesn't scare you, don't answer. Go hide someplace in the home. Hide your children. Protect your children. And then on top of that, if you do encounter a policeman or a social worker outside, you don't feel comfortable about the situation, don't talk to them. Just say yes, no answers. And then tell them you need to speak to your attorney. It's your constitutional right to be represented in all parts of the investigation or whatever the criminal act that they're supposedly you have done. And you can sit there and take their name or their badge number because you got to check them out because the police and the social workers will lie about their name. So you guys see their ID on the social worker. They wear it attached, and they don't have an ID, and maybe they have a business card, but all social workers have an ID, and policemen have a badge. And policemen sometimes have a card they'll give you because they sometimes investigate and give a card of how they contact them. But I'm telling you that you don't want to talk to them. You want to get away from them, and you need to tell them you need to speak to your attorney. You probably say, I don't have an attorney. Well, they don't know that. Pretend, and then get an attorney. And for an attorney for a small fee to represent you at the start of something, you may find that's a good attorney. But make sure you get an attorney like Mr. Davis, that is a fighter CPS, that has a background in defense law. Mr. Davis is a trial attorney too. There's so many good things about him. I could say that last night I spoke to a lady that is, he's going up to Merced, California. He's in Arcadia to defend this lady right now. Defend this lady. So he does go out of state. He was in Oklahoma a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago defending someone there in Oklahoma. So he will go out of state. So it's important there. So, don't talk to social workers. Don't talk to police because they use it against you. They use it against you. I did all the things. I broke every rule that I'm talking about. Also, we got to watch out medical trafficking. They will uh, get you when you take your children to the hospital for emergency help. And it's sad because they're working now looking for people that steal. They do that purposely. It used to be the hospital was only hospital people, but now they got the social service people that are hiding out there. They're hiding out there, and it is wrong. It is wrong. I don't know how else to tell you, but it's wrong. So that's my rule number three, and my other two rules are simple and short. Four is you need to spend time to investigate. The internet has so much information about CPS. You just type in your name of your city or your county. If it's a small city or county, type in a big city or county. And then type in the word CPS and then wherever your question is about CPS. But spend 40 to 60 hours, serious 40 to 60 hours a week researching. It'd be valuable, or spending so many nights, so many hours a night every night. But research it. There's so much to learn. And my last rule, rule number five, is one that Faye helped me on, and that is you need to collect your important documents like your birth certificate, your social security, that's of your children. Because if you don't have those documents, the foster care people will get, the social workers will get a birth certificate, and put the foster care people in there. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. So if you just had a child, make sure you walk out with the social security card and the birth certificate. Also, you can put in that folder a copy of your marriage certificate. Some of you may have put it on the wall. I don't know. But a copy is fine too. And your birth certificate, your passport, your copy of your driver's license. Those things are going to be really important. They're going to be really, really important. So make that folder very portable. Your kids' school reports or grade school, how they're doing in school. That can prove to the case workers your kids are in school. They show a students doing A's, they can't say they don't go to school. They can't do that. So those are my five rules. I said one, to get an attorney; two, to create a notebook; three, to not let social workers in your home or give up your children, and not give them at the hospitals. I mean, if you're pregnant, I've heard of reports where a pregnant woman just gave birth, and in walks the social worker and the policeman to take the child. You say no. You tell them to get out of the room. You tell the doctor to get them out of the room. But the schools don't know about CPS. They're dumb. I hate to say that school districts are dumb. There's all these promises they make, and they just dump. You know, I'm well familiar with the IE program at school. I'm well familiar about what school officials can do and not do. I have a strong background in Boy Scouts. I've been a Boy Scout since age 7. So that's what, 60 some years. I've been an adult leader. My children are Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. So I know about the program. I know about the program. And these life skills, you need to get them. You need to get them. They are available. They are available. Um, we have a remaining amount of time. Faye, is there anything you like to add in? You haven't said much during my podcast.
Just listening, Mom.
Well, is there any comments you want to make or anything you like to add?
Nah.
Okay. Faye can be sometimes a very peaceful woman, very loving woman, and she has a lot to deal with her. She was in foster care 5 times in her life, and she's been abused, molested. She's seen it all, and she's very discouraged, as I am too, about how the child protection system is still broken, still wanting to not help out children in need, still not help out families. They let so many cases that are bad cases go unattended. I mean, life is important out there. I know that all of you got to value life. You know, life is the spice of life, living free, living where people care about one another, living where people care and respect one another. You know, we as individuals are human beings, and you know, we all believe in a God and a spirit and so forth. And it's very important that we do that. It's very, very important that we care about our children. Our children should be the number one priority. They go to school to learn. They go to school to interact with other kids their own age. That's the whole purpose of schooling. It isn't to try to be a scientist or something. That is an offset, or to be a star football player. It's the chance of learning something more. I know we have a lot of parents that believe in homeschooling because the schools let them down. And it is a hard job to do homeschooling. If it's done right and done proper, I think it's a good thing. It's a variety. We live in a very, very democratic country. I've been told by South African officials that we're too democratic. And I don't believe that. I used to be a president of an international organization. I used to sit with 60 some countries from around the world. It was a surfing organization. And they liked me because I knew Robert's Rules of Order. But as I've found from talking to people worldwide, you know, we are very fortunate to live in the United States. Every time I leave the United States, I'm very thankful to be back here. But I'm also very sad to say that politicians, a lot of them, do not stand up what they should do. They are controlled by money. Money seems to control the root of things. And so, with these elections coming up, I think it's so important that we support the best candidate. The candidate can make our country great. They can make our country where we are recognized by superpowers that were powerful and strong. And I know that elections are important, so you all got to go out and vote. I want to make sure you all go out and vote. Vincent has told me that that's really important. We vote. We vote for judges. Vote for candidates. You know, things of that nature. Also, we need to be outspoken and together to fight things that are wrong. To stand up. Faye sees something wrong, she stands up for it. She has written letters to important people, and they ignore her. There's groups of people that have done things. 2 years ago, there was a march on Sacramento, California, where CPS was alerted about how bad they are, and it's still going on. But I have faith in everybody in the United States that we'll have the right person at the helm of our country, and our country will keep being strong as it is. And I had to, I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm not telling you to go out and vote for anybody, but just use your common sense. You have to use your common sense. A lot of politicians are talkers. A lot of politicians will blow their ways because they're connected to money. That's what controls most of our congressmen and representatives. They're controlled by money sources, and very few are independent. But you see them; they'll sit there and they talk. They have no afraid to talk against other politicians. So a politician is not the best person to have. You know, we need somebody that knows how to run a business, that knows how is a fighter, that has fought so many things against them. So I like to close with everybody. Please keep fighting for your children. Don't stop fighting CPS. And I'll see you tonight at um, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on my podcast. I love you all. I'm a family man. I care about you. Hug your child. This is Bob Pace and Faye signing off. Thank you, Faye, for being there with me. And thank you, Martinez, too, for calling in. So, good day.